therapy has changed not only my life but millions of people's lives. And I know David Herwood, who was who's on Supergirl. He came on the show, and he was so forthcoming and so open about his, his history of like with mental illness and all these things. And I just was, and the first thing you said is, I go to therapy, which not all actors do. They kind of want to hide that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but most actors go. I just think.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. They just don't maybe share that they do, but it's important. And for me, I started seeing someone weekly because I've been on and off, but pretty much right when the pandemic started, I was like, okay, because I had to sit still. I couldn't work.
Right.
I couldn't do anything.
We were forced to just stay at home.
Yeah.
But that's when
I found things to do.
What did you do?
I started writing. So
that's how it all happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
See what happens? You're forced to write at home.
Yeah.
And then you end up writing an episode for the series final season of Supergirl for an episode. That's crazy. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to start painting, and then I'm going to be in a museum next year.
Look, I also cried and was scared and did all the things everyone did during the day. I just would carve out a couple hours to channel that into something.
And you had never written before?
No. I had written, but not like a structured script. And I got a teacher because
You hired a teacher?
I did. I hired a writing person.
How do you find a teacher who will teach you how to write? I mean, where do you find these people?
I had a friend, well, I asked I'm going to be really honest. I worked with someone who felt really intense, who was an actual writing coach, who wasn't a working writer, and the energy was really off, and it gave me a lot of anxiety.
Right.
I called a female showrunner friend of mine and said, hey, do you have any writers that want to make some money and are off right now? And she's like, actually, the perfect person for you. And it was a staff writer on one of her shows, and we Zoomed, and it was like we got along really well, and then 2-3 days a week, we'd hop on.
So what was the first conversation you have? So, Azie, have you written? What do you want to write? Why do you want to start writing?
Yeah.
Here's from you just start from where do you start? What do they tell you to do? Just write?
I had an idea for a Supergirl storyline for Kelly. Specific
for your character?
Yeah. Yeah, because we had kind of touched on her being a war vet, but there was so much of PTSD and how we as a country treat veterans when they come back home, and we hadn't really looked at that. And we had Sean Astin on, who played like an old...
I love Sean.
He's the best.
How much do you love working with Sean? He's like
the best.
They always say like Henry Winkler's the nicest guy in the business, and I think Sean Astin's like number 2.
He really is, and his daughter is a big fan of Supergirl, so he's seen every episode. It's their bonding thing they do together.
Are you kidding me?
No, he's seen every, and there's over 100 episodes of Supergirl they've watched.
How many have you been in?
I don't know, like 40 or 50.
And so you got the idea and I want to get into this.
Yeah.
But I also want to go back to something you just talked about. You said therapy.
Yeah.
Had you get into therapy just during COVID? Was that the first time, or you had been going for years?
I had done it before off and on, but I hadn't consistently. And I had like my dog passed, and
Me too. When did your dog pass?
March.
My dog passed
First week of March.
5 months ago.
Oh, I'm
so what was
sorry.
that? It's about the same. Yeah, it was hard. 13 years.
Oh my gosh, it's brutal, and I was, alone in Vancouver. My dog was like my other half,
it's
essentially.
Your companion.
Yeah. So, and then a friend of mine had suddenly passed, and and then a week later, COVID, and our show got shut down. So I was like prime. I'll tell you something. I have a really good girlfriend of mine when all that stuff went down, who was like, I didn't know how to support you.
Right.
And so what I did was I called a bunch of trauma therapists in Vancouver, and I narrowed it down to 2, and I went ahead and booked sessions with them and told them everything you've been through so you don't have to. So here you go. And it was like the most thoughtful, incredible.
What?
I know. She's a really good friend. Yeah.
Wait, so this person called up a therapist and said, this is what they've gone through. They lost a dog. They've been dealing with this. Told as much. And this person knew you inside out.
She and talked to a couple and was like, she's not going to like that person. These 2 women feel like a good vibe. And then talk them through it so that I didn't have to, rehash everything.
So you just went right into it?
Mm-hmm.